Some property owners don't like the term landlord and prefer the term housing provider. But do you think a tenant cares if they're being evicted by their landlord or their housing provider? I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over a subject that I have heard discussed a few times, not just in my comment section, but I've also read different articles about it. And it's about the term landlord, right? Now, I don't know the history behind it. I just know that it's a very common, saying for people who rent out their properties to other people, okay? So I like the term because, everybody knows what it is. Everybody knows what you're talking about. There's no misconceptions about what you're doing. Now, does it have a negative connotation with it? Some people say, yeah. I personally don't see it, and I've never heard, anybody who I know saying it. Maybe I've seen a few negative pieces on the media about it, but I don't really care what the media says, and it doesn't hurt me personally. So, I want to basically say that, hey, I'm in support of the original term landlord. I don't really think it's a good idea to try to change it. I think what some landlords are doing is they're trying to make it so that, we seem less threatening, less evil in the eyes of the public, right? Well, you know what? Your personal actions, they speak louder than words, okay? You can call us whatever you want, but in the end, right, the only thing that matters is, if you're doing the right thing, and that's the right thing by your tenants, that's the right thing by the law. And, I think that a lot of landlords, they see that, hey, there's a few bad actors out there, the ones that they call slumlords, right? And they're like, oh, I don't want to be associated with that name. I don't want to be associated with those type of people. Well, they won't be associated with you, okay, if you're doing everything right. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think. So do you like the term landlord, or would you prefer a different term or different terminology for people who, rent houses, okay? I mean, housing provider, do you like that, or do you think that's a little bit silly? What do you like, okay? But anyway, let me get into this. This is an opinion piece, and it's interesting to read a different perspective, So this article is coming from CowichanValleyCitizen.com, and it says, letter, housing providers, not landlords. Housing providers are so important to our society. Well, let's see what this person's opinion is on the whole subject. There is no lord in this business. The term landlord needs to be changed to protect housing providers from the stigma of colonial blame that seems to be looking for places to punish. Housing providers are so important to our society. They are business people investing their money in their own province. Why do people see them as almost evil? Providing housing is not a designated essential service, and yet they are not allowed to leave a unit empty without penalty. As well, are not allowed to raise rents to market value like any other business. And I should mention this is, coming from somewhere outside of the US, but, I thought that the topic was what was important, okay? So when they say that they're not allowed to raise rents up to the market value, well, some places in the US actually you can do that, specifically where I invest. And apparently they can't leave their units empty. That's kind of crazy. Let me see where this Cowichan Valley is, because I have no personal clue. Let's see here. Cowichan Valley is a regional district in the Canadian province of British Columbia. And that should be eye-opening right there, because, simply put, Canada has some of the most strict anti-landlord laws in the entire, world, as far as I know, okay? So they don't treat you like you have a lot of property rights. But, this is still important because, part of the reason why these landlords are trying to change this terminology is because people basically want to strip them of their rights, and they think that somehow if they can win the battle of the language, if we can win the language battle, then maybe we will get treated better. No, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I mean, it's wishful thinking, but I don't see it happening. But anyway, let me continue with the article. Other individuals like transit employees, nurses, teachers, port workers, ferry workers, CRA, and on, even though one would reasonably see them as essential and also paid pretty well on average, seem to be able to strike and shut essential services down and actually do it with no retribution. Housing providers have to work too. It takes a fair effort to retain and maintain a dwelling as well. They pay more land tax for the exact same services as any other taxpayer. If they want out of business, capital gains on the whole amount of profit, and they have to take it all in 1 year on top of any other income they may have earned. This, even though it may have accrued over 20 years. It is no wonder the housing shortage is getting worse. And great points right there, okay? So you might have accrued the value of your property over the course of a 20-year period, but when you sell that property, the capital gains, you have to pay all that amount at one point in time. Now, fortunately, in the U.S., we have things such as the 1031 exchange, which allow us to further delay the amount of taxes that we pay on property that we sell. But in Canada, they don't have that sort of thing, okay? And that means that they get hit hard with taxes. So a lot of property owners, what they do is they hold on to those properties. They don't sell nearly as often. And this is what leads to the increasingly high cost of housing up in Canada. I'm sorry. I was going to say California, but California is so similar to Canada at this point that, you could almost swap out the two places, names and be like, oh, well, this is why housing is so expensive. But, I feel for the people up in Canada because they have an uphill battle if you're trying to be a landlord up there. And there are people who do make really, really good money doing it, but it is not the kind of place where I'd want to be an investor. It is the kind of place where I'd say, hey, you might want to look outside of your whole country in order to buy any real estate. But anyway, let me continue. There is a grassroots problem here. Groceries are expensive, but do we hate the store owner or the gas station owner? Thank you to all housing providers that have the courage to carry on in spite of the shaming of government and society. Grocery lord, gas lord, drive-through coffee lords, there goes the rent. Oh, I heard they can't cook us out anyway. And so, I think the big problem is, right, and this is why they want to change the name, is, it's got a negative connotation where it almost makes it sound like, okay, well, you're the lord of the land and these people are your poor servants or something. Well, it's not like that at all. Honestly, this is a business just like any other business where, we are the business owner and then we have customers who are paying for a service from us. And, we provide that service to them just like a person who rents a car. You go and you rent a car from a car rental company. It's not like, it's a very transactional relationship. There is no, oh, I am dominating over you or you are dominating over me, because you have the option to choose where you want to live, who you want to rent from. And I should have the option of being able to choose who I rent to. But as you can see, that's not always the case. And, you don't have the ability to choose how much you charge for rent. You don't have the ability to choose, how long the contract is going to be between you and the tenant or you and the customer. And you don't have the ability to set a lot of the terms and conditions of your transaction between another individual party, because they put a third person, being the government, in between the two parties. And that creates a huge, huge problem. So, I mentioned before that, hey, I do have some people who are up in Canada who watch my videos, right? And they've mentioned many times that a lot of the stuff going on up there is a lot worse than what's going on in even places like California and New York, right? But I always say, hey, you know what? We look up there, we look in these places where we see these worst case scenarios and we see the future, okay? these things, they are coming to where we live and where we invest right now. And the only thing I can do, and the only thing I can suggest right now is that you move where you are treated, or you invest where you are treated the best. But eventually it will come to the point where even here, and like I'm in the Midwest, in investing in small town, investing in a medium-sized city, and even here we're already seeing a lot of this same stuff being proposed. So anyway, interesting article. If you believe that, hey, the term landlord is bad, put it down in the comments and tell me why.